let me back up real quick.
Yeah.
This guy said $1 trillion. Man, some people can't even think that big. I mean, some people can barely think million.
Yeah.
Some people can rarely think billion.
Man, you know that podcast?
What podcast?
Man, you know that podcast.
Which podcast?
Man, you know that.
Big Wally. Welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, bro.
You know that. Once again, we're at Solidarity Studios.
Yep.
We got the podcast up. We got the music in the background. But I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast. You know, we starting off every podcast, and we're going to talk about, hey, how do we know each other?
Yeah.
And just to start it off and kick it off, man, I know you from the field. And what I
literally
the field, man. And you know, this is back in high school. We met on the football field, you know, and we were both linebackers.
Yeah.
And man, I want to get your perspective, but I remember this one time, you know, I was coming up junior year and you were a senior. We were doing some drills.
Yeah.
And this boy knocked me on my ass one time.
No way, bro.
Oh,
no way.
Bro, you did. I remember I said, boom. I said, damn, Wally.
Well, maybe I was lucky. You're saying your junior year? Because I feel like you started your junior year over me and everyone that was a senior.
See, that's what happened in junior year.
Yeah.
The first game was against Mount Carmel at Soldier Field, and we didn't know who was starting.
Yeah.
Until the day of.
Yeah.
I seen my name, Almeida, start. I said, what?
Oh my goodness.
But bro,
true.
I knew it was competition though, cause like I said, I always remember that. I was like, dude, he hit me that one time, but yeah, bro, I wanna know, man, what's your perspective, bro, when we first met on the field and stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned many things, so it's good to give context. We went to St. Patrick's High School, northwest side of Chicago, private high school. We were blessed with football scholarships, academic scholarships, and it was crazy. Like, at some point, I played, I think, 2 years at Soldier Field, I believe. That was just a beautiful opportunity. Remember that? How small you feel on that field, but you have all your family, you know, and you're like walking where giants.
And everyone
play.
was proud, bro.
Oh, so proud.
Our families, they're saying,
so proud.
Soldier Field.
So proud.
Yo.
And a shout out to like you and Adi, my brother. Shout out Love. You guys, like, real quick before I even continue, you guys just knew how to read the ball. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know how to know where the lineman will go, where the running back's going to go. You know how to read the play. And I just couldn't do that. I was athletic. I was tough, you know. But once you get farther in your career in any sport, it becomes more of the mental, not the physical.
It was.
So you and Adi had that, and it's an incredible skill. And I remember, like, as soon as I learned that you and Adi were going to start over me, I was like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. Like, why am I here? Like, I'm just here on the B squad ready to, like, help them, you know? But, like, that was it.
You ain't B squad, though. You A team, bro, really. But, you know, I really didn't even know that you had that challenge of reading the linemen. Because, honestly, I guess that was the competitive advantage. Because when we're on as a linebacker, we're not looking at the QB. We're not looking at the running back. We're looking at the lineman. And they're that first half millisecond, what is happening, and we commit right when you see that.
Well, you guys actually did commit. I'd still stay, you know, where I'm at, and I'm reading where do I need to go. By then it's too late. Like, the play you needed to run it's too late. But but also, I feel like I knew of you back in the Shabona days, no?
We knew each other because you were at Portage, too, and we were going through recruitment to high school. I seen you in a wrestling room before. It's like we knew of each other in the space, but then we all ended up at Pat's.
Well, it was a beautiful thing. I think our families knew that sports was going to be an opportunity for us, you know, open doors in our education, financially as well, right? Because we wanted to go to a good school. Not to say that we couldn't have gotten in. We did get into the good schools in Chicago CPS program, but it was also just like where we're from, and you know, our parents saying, "Let me try to provide something a little bit better, perhaps safer, and something a bit more tight-knit community," which I think St. Pat's offered. I definitely knew of your father. He was a coach.
So
it was a beautiful thing to like be from the same area of the city, or playing in the same neighborhood, and knowing the other family has a great reputation. Your dad was a leader in the community, leader in the city, and me and Adi, I think, did Adi play with you?
No, Adi
against
played,
you.
He played at Portage.
Yeah,
I don't even know if I played against him. He might have been. Yeah.
Okay. But we just knew, like, we
were in the same community,
trying
right?
to go to good schools.
You know that.
Good kids, good family, good parents. So by the time we went to high school, it just felt like we already had like a natural connection.
Already, and bro, you Colombiano, I'm Ecuadorian, like that's there too. And so I want to jump ahead a little bit too.
Yeah.
So while we're at Pat's, I just need to let everyone know, man, you inspired us, and by us I mean me, I mean Adi, Love, because I never even knew Northwestern University existed, and then I remember, I think it was our junior year, there was someone at Pat's who got into Northwestern.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized Northwestern exists.
Yeah.
And then you applied to Northwestern and you got in.
Yeah.
And Love and I,
the
following year, I felt like we had no choice but to follow that, bro. Because we were like, yo, you brought us to campus. You're like, bro, check this out. And even before I got accepted, I felt like I was already at Northwestern, because I want to thank you, bro. You brought us onto the campus, for some, I mean, when I was with you, that was probably before, when I was in high school, that's the most time I ever partied at Northwestern. But it was with you in high school at Northwestern. But all I'm bringing this up is because you inspired us, and I got to thank you for that. That's why I went to Northwestern, big reason why. And yeah, man, just let's tell me, what did you do at Northwestern very briefly, man? What did you study, and how was that experience for you?
But so I'll talk about like a little bit of the highlights at Northwestern, but real quick, I would say, like, it was a beautiful thing. Everything I saw in myself, I saw in you guys as well, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, if I could do it, you guys can do it easily, like you guys were on par, if not farther, both in sports, leadership, and grinding in academics and just doing what we got to do. So I was like, guys, like, we can all do this together. So that's what I'll say. So it was for a reason. It was meant to be, bro.
Yeah.
And as far as like a couple highlights, it's a interesting thing in one's life and career to be from a certain place and to be in certain spaces for the first time, right? I didn't know anyone, and many didn't socialize with folks that necessarily looked for like myself. I didn't know where to find those people,
right?
And eventually when I did, there's like a whole, not an identity crisis, but an identity story that one has to go through to like figure out what you are about, because the narrative can switch depending on the space. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because sometimes it's less about money and it's about where you're from. Sometimes it's other struggles that you have gone through, right? So for me, I think eventually how wonderful it is to realize like you always got to be yourself and be real. And that was like a journey for me as well. And I loved, if anything, I looked up to you and Adi for that, because you guys were keeping it real like way quicker than me.
Well, like you said though, you had to step into that space with no connections. At least when we did come, you were there and things like that. And so there was some type of footing set already. And and I'm glad that we were able to step in our authenticity so that we could kind of feed off of each other. And I know when you were studying finances, economics, and me and Adi, we're here to learn, and you're like, hey man, let's make this money. We're like, hey bro, hold on, first we gotta get this knowledge. And then we always be by the lake just arguing, bro. We're like, but hey man, it's beautiful because today it's intersecting now, and
it's in the way that it needs to, in the way that it was meant to be.
That
it's so funny. So funny. But yeah, that's a good question. So a little bit about like kind of what I was about at Northwestern. So real estate was a big thing. Eventually, there were a group of guys that I knew that invited me to be one of the co-founders of the real estate club at Northwestern. So I was one of the first vice presidents of that club, and I just love teaching, love helping, tutoring. You know, I did that at Northwestern, did that at St. Pat's. So it was natural. So I was like head of developing a curriculum and helping teach kids, put presentations. I love to do that. Still a part of who I am today.
Right.
So that was one thing, was being able to build a new outlet for students when it came to real estate, because it was only offered to the master's program. So that was a big thing. Another thing was being one of the leaders. I was eventually president of the Minority Business Association. So for Black, Latino, and LGBT, as well as Native American students, it was about putting together programming, networking opportunities, mentorship opportunities, and even like things from mock interviews to actual employers coming through.
Right. You were always about that. You're like, make sure your resumes are good, guys.
Yeah, bro.
You always make sure our resumes were good, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I was just like, it was natural for me to be like, this is what I'm going through right now.
You know that.
I'm about to dip.
Yeah.
Let's get a group, right? And make sure it's well functioning and help kids all the way down to freshman year.
Scale it.
Keep going. Those were the top things. Besides, the third thing I would mention would be, it was an honor to be one of the recipients of the Kapnick Prize, which is like a leadership award that goes to 4 students every year in the business program.
Great.
And I was one of the recipients for the things I just mentioned.
You know that.
That's cool.
Shout
That's
out.
cool.
Good
Yeah,
good work.
thanks, bro. Appreciate
That's
it.
decent. So yeah, man, you made an impact at Northwestern, and you transitioned out of Northwestern and you went into a corporate space. And a lot of Northwestern students go into a corporate space. And that wasn't my journey. My journey is a lot different from that, but I also think it's unique, and I would love to learn more. Like, okay, after Northwestern, you went into a corporate space. I want to know what conclusions have you came up with working in these spaces today?
Yeah. Well, also I should preface by saying it's a specific type of corporate America. It was big Wall Street, right? So I moved out to Manhattan.
Y'all see his suit, right? You already know that.
It's matching. It's a 2-piece.
Hey, that's the Wolf of Wall Street right here. Actually,
Saturday, I was like, all right, no blue today then.
Hey, you know what? We're going to call
Take
this.
a different color.
This episode is going to be called Wolf of Wall Street Part 2.
Something like that. We'll call it something like that. Throw in a W in there.
You know?
Yeah,
Okay,
like
the
that,
W.
like that.
Okay.
So, you know, it's a different environment. It's a different environment the same way consulting is a different environment, the same way corporate America at a big ad agency or like, I don't know, a big engineering company. It's going to be different, but also there are a lot of similarities. So, you know, I got a full-time offer after my internship and went back to New York. It was a lot of grinding, man. I was in by 7.
In at 7.
Maybe out by 7.
In 7, out 7. 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
Where did you work out?
Absolutely.
What time were you working out?
Usually I just backtrack it. Like I would get up around 4:50 to be in the gym by like 5 something, showered up, out the door by like 6:30 to be in at 7.
That's another type of grind right there.
Yeah.
You know that.
Now to this day, like it's not the same. Like I need to work out in the morning.
You need to.
It's just how my spirit functions.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I'd be seeing you on Instagram, bro, working out in the morning. I'm like, this guy up
Yeah.
early as hell.
I'll be like, yo, it's 8 o'clock now. We don't need to post this for the gram. Like, if it wasn't 7:30, like, don't post it, bro. So anyways, so what I'll say, man, is I'll just say a beautiful thing and maybe a tough thing, right? I'll start off with the tough thing.
Okay.
I think it was tough to feel like, you know, you don't have people you can talk to. And also an interesting thing is, even if someone is Latino or Hispanic or older Black woman or, you know, a male, some type of person of color that you feel comfortable being able to have a conversation about being a minority in corporate America. It was another thing also to assume that you kind of can talk about the same things.
Talk about it, right? Yeah.
We don't all come from certain neighborhoods.
Right. I mean,
of cities, right?
Going back to that too, really quick, going back to Northwestern, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's Black, Spanish, whatever, but a lot of these a lot of the people came from upper echelon of class and society and could not relate to our experience coming from Chicago, coming from the neighborhoods we come from. So I totally understand what you mean, and that applies to corporate.
Yeah, you end up learning that like race and ethnicity is a form of diversity, but it's like the buck don't stop there, right?
You know that
there's more.
Yes.
And so you evolve and broaden your perspective because you also see that there are white people that, for example, grew up poor. You know, and some of the people that I became close with and resonated with, we could just talk about the same shared struggles. And then you'll also think about, this started to happen recently, you would assume that one of the international students that you were, you know, in your class with or whatever, that they would eventually, like, it had to mean they came from money or something, right? Like,
I would imagine.
They're in America from London.
Yeah.
But then that's another thing too, right? It's like you can come from a certain neighborhood in London and just be here on a scholarship. And that was mind-blowing too, because I'm like, bro, that fancy-ass accent, hold on.
I didn't know that.
You know? Like, it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing.
I did not even think about that, because
Exactly,
I applied all international.
Exactly.
Y'all playing full tuition.
But then also, like, reverse, you know, I was an international student in Europe for my master's program. I'll get to that. But, like, people thought the same with me. Like, damn, there's, like, the one American kid in a room full of 130 nationalities.
Hey, man.
The kid has to have bread.
Bread, right. I feel the same thing, man. When I was walking the streets of Ghana, everyone thought I was rich, just, you know, looking how I look.
Yeah.
You know?
So, being in corporate America, I was looking for faces that looked like me, people that were minorities, because it felt safer to have conversations with them. But still, it was like, we're not all necessarily from the same places. You know, sometimes at the end of the day we have different experiences, but while I will say that in the beginning it's a little bit of a struggle, it's a popular struggle for minorities in the workplace, and especially in large corporate settings. One of the most beautiful things I will say is like the power of making a good first impression, the power of introducing yourself the right way, carrying yourself the right way, with respect, integrity, hard work, and being yourself, being authentic. People are, when they see that, they receive it, and they're willing to give you, you know, 15 minutes at a time, 30 minutes of their time, introduce you, give you a handshake to another person, and then you never know what soundbite or what beautiful conversation that'll turn into, or introduction that'll turn into, form of mentorship, sponsorship, whatever it might be, right?
That's the game right there.
I got a lot of that.
And that's the game. You taught me that, man.
Yeah.
Because you taught me to also, sometimes you have to go beyond where you come from in order to meet people face to face, face value, introduce yourself properly so you can get those other opportunities and not always bring that history with you as well. And that, I mean, that's game. That's game.
Yeah.
That was good game that you taught me.
Be about your business.
You know that.
And you never know how a conversation can unfold. So while it was a struggle, there was a lot of you know, love that was being shared my way, but also advice and wisdom. And to this day, there are people I still talk to, and to this day, there are people that I just knew, and they were important and played a little bit of a role in shaping my mind the way I needed it to be shaped, and for me to develop my own perspective, you know?
Yep.
So I will say, like, as far as talking about starting off your career in certain settings, overcoming those, you know, struggles or challenges, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep.
And you don't have to be fake. I think an interesting thing that I used to talk about was like code switching.
Yep.
And it was like, it may never be perfect and one and the same, right? But you don't want that code switch left and right to be so dramatically different. You don't want to feel like two totally.
You want to find something in between.
That space where you operate in and you still feel authentic. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to talk to the CEO, my boss, the same way that I talk to my mama, right? Like,
no.
That's okay.
No. Yep.
But like, you should still feel like you're being yourself.
That's the code switch formula.
That really changed my perspective, and I don't think like those types of things hold me back anymore, and I don't want them to hold anyone back from similar backgrounds, you know?
Shout out to that, man. You know, you talked about Barcelona. Maybe you could touch on Barcelona for a minute or two.
Yeah. So basically, after Northwestern, or while I was in the Wall Street program in New York.
Wall Street Wally, you know that.
I did it for a year. Still working Wall Street, so it's fine.
Okay, bet.
It's fitting. It's fitting.
Yep.
But I was like, I think two things. I was finding that there were ways to be innovative in finance when it came to investing in an environmentally or socially conscious manner, right?
Okay.
That it was innovative. It was new.
Okay.
It was breakthrough. It was like, these are things that don't exist yet, and we're starting to create new products and services on them. I'm like, okay, damn, this is the future. Let's do it. But at the same time, because we're more environmentally and socially conscious, it also means that we have opportunities to invest. Not that they're one and the same, because they're not. But there are ways to make those two things together, where you're not only investing in a way that's forward thinking or that is innovative, but you're also able to do it in a way that's meaningful or values aligned.
Yep.
Right? And I was like, wow, well, that's cool too, right? There are religious clients. There are clients that want social or environmental impact.
This is value investing.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's many names, and at that time, the one that the bucket I was going into was like impact investing.
Impact investing.
So
Got you.
it was very niche, still niche to this day. It's a small part of the broader ecosystem and investment industry. But I was like, whether it's left or right, one of these two routes is meant for me. And right now, this is major in Europe. It's not mainstream here.
Okay.
So I need to go over there.
Okay.
So going to a good school like Northwestern, I was like, what are the rankings? Looked up the rankings. Decided, well, what program makes sense? Because there's different rankings for different programs, right?
Yep.
You can get a master's degree in business or a master's degree in like art, right? So I was like, what am I looking for? Applied to a few of the top 10, got in. It was basically like the second best school in Spain. Not like a Harvard, but like a Yale.
Okay.
And I was like, why not? Let's
Why
do
not?
it. It's
Yeah.
Barcelona,
Yeah.
I talk Spanish as well. So I was like, let's go for it. And
Right.
it's now or never. I'm young.
Yep.
And
That's the time to do it,
yeah.
by the way. If y'all
Yeah.
looking to go travel for school or study abroad, like when you're young is the time.
Or
That's
take a position internationally. You did your thing in Ghana, for example.
exactly.
That's
And
what your 20s are for.
I was advised by the Department for Fellowships at Northwestern. I asked the question. I said, "Hey, should I take this Fulbright fellowship now, or should I just wait until later?" And that advisor
Run
said,
that.
"Right now, you don't know what's gonna happen in life. This is the time to do it right
Amazing.
now.
Yeah.
You don't know if it's gonna come back around, this opportunity either."
Exactly.
So that's a good
Exactly.
point of yeah. So you were talking about like, our parents. The
Yeah.
type of international trips we know. I mean, the type of
Yeah.
trips we know. Trips to Florida, by the
Wisconsin
pool.
knows.
No, that's
You know what I'm saying?
that's why I'm
Nothing
saying.
wrong with that. It was like my childhood, my upbringing,
Yeah.
But it just meant that it was a little daunting
Mm-hmm.
to feel like, am I ready? Are my pockets ready?
Mm.
Is my mind ready? Like, what will happen? I'm living in another country and I'm going to school there. I'm moving my whole life there. I remember one time I told my dad I was scared. My dad's like, "So then don't go, Poppy." I was like, "But I think I'm more scared if I don't go." He's like,
Oh yeah.
"So then go, Poppy." I was like, "Ah, you're right. It's gonna be fine either way. So might as well go." So
Yep.
I remember that, like I think it was that time Northwestern went to like the Sweet 16.
Uh-huh.
It was like that. It was like March of 2018.
Okay.
And so I made the full decision with a lot of confidence and conviction, and I was like, "Nah, I gotta go."
At the end of the day, man, when I think about decisions, I think about would I regretted not doing it.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
yep.
Exactly. And I won't go into like how to make a graduate school decision. I would just say that it shouldn't be a all or nothing about the money or all or nothing about a job, because money will change job to job, company, and you could fall out of love with making the same amount of money in a certain position when you can make the same money in a different position.
Okay.
So I would say it shouldn't be all or nothing on the money, and it shouldn't be all or nothing on the title.
There you go.
Because you might get the job that you wanted, the title that you wanted, and be like, damn, this isn't really what I wanted, you know? So it should be more about what do you want to get.
Yeah, that's a change of perspective, I think.
Internally.
This is a change of perspective from you, because I remember when I spoke to you maybe 2-3 years ago, you're like, hey, yo, elevate to the next title, elevate to the next role. And it sounds like your mind has changed a little bit now, 3 years later, that's not the case.
Yeah, and I like that we go far back. So, like, you've been a part of knowing the decision-making process, the thought process behind, steps that I've taken in life.
Yep.
So it wasn't always like
that.
It
wasn't.
Sometimes
it's like, a good advice, though, and early. But
we got to make our racks. And, like, we can't make racks unless in this corporate system, in corporate America, not saying you can't make these racks without a degree, but it's like, it's competitive. So what are you going to do to stand out? And for me, I was like, okay, my mama wants me to do it. I want to make her proud. But at the same time, like, I want to differentiate myself and also develop myself in a certain type of way. So let me go do this, right?
There you go. And that was your that was your environment, and that's what you had to do in that environment.
Exactly. Yep. And that's what I had to do. That's what I did. But it's evolved for sure.
Cool.
I think that there comes a point in our lives where we're like, is it all or nothing, only corporate America, or is corporate America a big part of my life? Love it, like it, but it's not anymore the only thing. And I think that's where I'm at right now, where I'm passionate about my career, love what I do. But once it's 5 o'clock, I got other things to do too.
Amen. And I'm not in corporate America, but the thing is, we're close in age, and close in ambition and determination. I'm finding out the same thing too right now, that exactly what you said. Like, I was all work, but now, hold on, some other things need to be put in the forefront, and even my enjoyment, man. And so I'm starting to do that now too. I'm 27, you're 28, and 29, 29, and I guess this is the stage in our developmental process. That's when we start realizing this.
And that's the thing, is like, you have to make sacrifices when you're young.
You do, man.
Fresh out of high school, fresh out of college, fresh out of an apprenticeship.
You gotta sacrifice, man. Like, you gotta sacrifice,
you gotta be down to learn. Do what you gotta do. Put in those hours. Like, it ain't always gonna be like that. But whatever level you're operating in, they're pushing you in a certain type of way. I'm not saying this for everyone, but for certain type of people in certain type of work settings, like, you're probably learning from someone that's, like, been in the game and they know what they're doing, and you got to be able to say, like, what can I learn? Right? What can I take from this? Even if I don't want to be here for 30 years and rise all the way, you're still, learning about yourself and your career. First 5 years out of college, it's about just being able to say, I'm gonna put my head down and learn.
Absolutely, and someone could tell you something who's older than you and who knows the game, but you have to experience it and apply it, and that's where it takes time to do that. So Wally, thank you, man, for sharing a little bit about Barcelona, Northwestern, man, the field, Wall Street, Wally, Esco. Where are we at today? What is maybe a cool project that you want to highlight? What are we doing today?
So it's been a blessing to have been able to work professionally in the investment space. Do it at, I'll just name a couple spots real quick. So, like, I think top 3 wealth management firm. I would say the number 2 largest endowment in California.
Okay.
Where the ecosystem for grant making and impact investing is it's a good ecosystem, right? It was a good place to learn. And then at a top 20 investment company, over $1 trillion in assets. Things move fast. We're talking big scale. We're talking clients from Asia, Europe, America. Not everyone's the same. So you learn how to have multi-varied perspective.
Let me back up real quick. This guy said $1 trillion. All right, so, man, some people can't even think that big. I mean, some people can barely think million. Some people can rarely think billion. Trillion. Okay. All right, man. So real quick, how do you see money then? Because if you were looking at money in that way, it must have changed your perspective on how you see money. Real quick, how do you see money?
I think That's a great point. I remember looking, you know, in wealth management, you have to basically, you have to like help a bunch of clients, right? And when you're helping a bunch of clients, you see like the size of their wealth, you know?
Yep.
And when you work for a big company, you see how many clients, you have hundreds and thousands of clients that are wealthy. And then you're seeing how there's a system to manage that wealth. And we're just one of the players in the game.
Wow.
So you're talking about managing thousands of millionaires' money, and in some cases, you know, larger family office money. And you're like, I'm a little piece in the pie. I'm a little piece in this pod. I'm a little piece in like this broader system, right? So when I think about it, I think about the financial system. I think about capitalism. I think about also the externalities, right? Like on our environment, like our climate, for example, right? And I don't need to give a values-based statement on what we're doing to our environment. All I need to say is from an economic perspective, if the environment, like our literal climate is changing, it can have an impact on business models. So what are we going to do to evolve, right? So how do I look about it? Studied economics. I think about it at a macro level, geographically, countries, regions, blocks, making decisions that affect like the individual consumer.
How do you apply that to your personal wealth?
I apply that to my personal wealth to say, you know, that there's two ways to make money. You're going to make money based off of your job, like your form of employment, and then you're going to make money based on how you invested the proceeds of that employment, right? How you invested that cash that you got. And those are two different things, right? I work in the industry where we're like, yeah, we'll manage your money for, right? But that's just my day job.
Yep.
So now what am I going to do with the money that I earned from my day job, right? And that's where wealth is built.
Yeah.
So this is something we'll get into. Like one of the projects I'm doing is like, I want to call it inclusive capital. Is how do we work with people that come from backgrounds like us, and how do we work more inclusively in real estate, which I'll get to the story about that. But right now, real estate, it's a challenging environment, right? And you have a couple options that have very, very limited benefits. The way to build, one of the oldest ways to build wealth is through real estate, right? Generational wealth. But back in the day, it was easier to do it by yourself. Today, a lot more difficult. I can get into the story. I'll love to just give the four big challenges that I see, and the four benefits that I'm trying to promote. But my biggest project is being inclusive, working collaboratively, and saying you may not have a background or a network or knowledge or time to invest in real estate, so let us help you.
You're creating a system. Because you said that's how you look at money.
Yeah.
Great.
How do we participate in the system?
Right.
Exactly.
So now, tell me a little bit more about this project, man. If you could break it down into those four, brief points, right?
Yeah.
Like what is this real estate project you're doing right now?
Yeah. So the four challenges I see, first off, all-time high prices.
One.
Right. All-time high prices, big problem. Numero uno.
Uno.
The number two challenge you have is also expensive rates, right?
Yes, interest.
22-year high rates, right?
Wow.
And then you could be like, oh, but my dad in the 80s or like my grandparents in the 70s bought homes in like 20% rate. Yeah, but the price of that home was like 1/5 of the cost it is today. Problem number three is you got a low supply. 2008 financial crisis happened. There were homes left and right. They weren't in mortgage originations at that time, right? They were just writing mortgages left and right. You saw the movie. Remember the movie?
Yep.
What's it called?
I don't know what the movie's called, but
The Big Short?
Yep.
Yeah, The Big Short?
I think so.
Talking about the 2008 financial crisis.
When he was...
anyone could get a...
I remember that movie. That movie is insane. He was...
You remember a snippet there?
I just remember a snippet there, like, we gotta... They're like, this is crashing. We need to bet against it.
Yeah.
And
but do you remember any of the stories of like people that shouldn't have been qualified for?
There was hella snippets of these people They're like, yeah, that's because they were doing the research into the portfolios, and they're like, look, they don't
actually have income. How can they afford?
This is not real.
Right? So when that happened, Developers didn't have the incentive. The economic system didn't have the capital. The system to develop homes just stopped.
3. So that's point number 3.
The problem is that it's expensive on the rate, it's expensive on the price, and now it's just competitive because I can't find anything.
No, I can't.
If I find it, I gotta throw in 100 racks just to fix it.
Right? Just to fix it. Yep.
Problem number 4 is, even if you were to find something and it's a decent deal with a decent rate,
right,
it's an uneven playing field right now. You have institutional demand. So I think a quote was that before 2017, we never had an institutional investor, like a big landlord, have 10,000 homes. Well, ever since 2017, I think for 5 years straight, we've had a 10,000 home, 10,000 property landlord every year.
So individuals are competing with corporations.
Exactly.
Berkshire Hathaway, for example.
Uneven playing.
Uneven.
So those are the 4 big
challenges,
big problems that exist today that we've never seen.
Okay.
Absolutely never seen. So what do we do about it is like what I'm focused on. At the end of the day, I don't think that it makes sense right now to be focused on those cash flow deals where you're putting a lot of money.
That's typically how
low margins.
And this is how people in Chicago think about it typically, right?
Yeah.
You become a landlord, you buy a 4-unit, 3-unit property, and you're turning cash from it.
I'm not saying that
30
those deals
years
don't exist,
right?
But they don't exist as abundantly as they used to.
They're harder to come across, right? And it's competitive.
We got the knowledge, we got the resources, we got the network, we got the relationships. We got the timeline and we got the projects. We handle all the work. We scope out all the properties and
fix them up.
Yeah, and increase the supply. And we're doing 2 things. We're helping solve the housing crisis because not a lot of people want to do the work on their own. They just want something that's ready to go. And also the big developers, the big companies, they want to do 2 things. They either only want to create like big boxes. So nowadays you hear about the average home being smaller because you don't got single families anymore. Now everyone's buying condos
and cheaper materials. I heard too.
Yeah, and you're living in big boxes like in condos, right?
Yep.
The developers, they don't want to do that, or they don't want to build. Like I said, they don't want to build the single family homes because there's not enough money for them or whatever, right? So the old American dream of having a home, the old American dream of being able to have a second or a third property so that you're a landlord and you're building wealth the old school way is difficult.
American dream dead.
Because you're like, I either buy land, I buy a big box where I have to compete with this institution, or I have to do this, I have to do this all on my own and I have no experience.
Right.
So we're not only increasing the housing stock, but we're also increasing access, investment opportunities for people.
And so, like, just to jump in real quick too, like, I'm experiencing the challenges that you kind of talked about looking in the market, right? Because what I'm doing right now is I'm just stacking my bread.
Exactly.
And that's
number one.
Number one. Right? And saving enough capital for investment opportunities when they present themselves, and when people like yourself and our communities come together and can unite. Now there's
if you're not saving, then it's like you're not even in the conversation.
If you're not saving, how much do you need to have saved?
So okay, and then we'll get into that too. I can't go into too much details, but
but just don't act like.
Let's say you're looking at, back in the day, you could get a home for $200,000 or $300,000, right? And if you're talking about your first investment property, which is at 20%,
yep,
2 or 3 would be 40 to 60 grand.
Yep.
Not everyone has 40 or 60 grand laying around,
right?
So, and that's on a $200,000 to $300,000 home, right?
Right.
Homes don't cost that much anymore.
Nope.
Now it's like
500,
right? So that's 100 racks on an investment property for your first opportunity to be a landlord, right?
Yep.
Whether it's a box or whether it's a lavish home.
The last thing I just want to ask before we wrap this up is, we got Wall Street Wally out here. You don't got to be too you don't have to be too like specific about this, but in general, right? Like, where are you yourself right now? Like, how are you diversifying your assets? Like, what do you have your money in?
Some investment talks there.
Yeah.
So like, if you work a job where you have a 401k, that's like lockup money.
Wally got the 401k.
You don't gotta touch it.
What's Wally got next?
So you gotta make sure that's diversified.
Okay.
You keep putting money in there, right? Second of all, you're gonna have your savings, right?
We got our savings.
I have different savings. I have a real estate savings. I have my own savings, and then I have a third bucket of like you never know savings.
You know that.
Like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna buy a barbershop. We're gonna buy a boat. What are we gonna do? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's for people like myself that are like, you know, maybe I want to be a business owner.
Yep.
Maybe I want to open up a shop with my brother or my uncle or something. I'm like, you never know. So outside of that savings and outside of my real estate savings,
you have that savings.
It's like the question mark savings.
Question mark.
What else does life have for us, right? So I like to have a little something on the side for that too.
Number 3, what does Wally got?
After that, you know, it's a different form of investment. I think there's coaching. I think that there's taking trips, meeting people, networking, investing in experiences, investing in certificates. You know, you don't always have to look to higher education necessarily. Now we live in a different time, but I'd say like, yeah, every year if you're looking at something that may cost 2, 3, maybe $5,000 and your company could pay half of it, right? Or all of it, right? And you need to pay for a trip and put your money in that way, like you should be investing in yourself. You should have a budget for that as well. For you know?
And do you have a fourth one?
Well, yeah, I think
you've been running fours, bro. So you're gonna have 16 points by the end of this. What's the fourth?
To say is like you look good and you feel good.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying? So
that's self-worth.
I got my budget for my fashion too.
Fashion,
and that's just, you know, spiritually, internally, I feel great.
Physically too, man. Your health,
exactly.
Just like your own
your doctors,
confidence.
Your fashion, whatever it is, it's another form of investing in yourself. So,
hey, we here with Wall Street Wally. You know that. Hey. Yeah. I appreciate you for coming through, bro. Thank you so much. Hey,
thank you for having me.
You're welcome, man.
And I invite anyone that would like to have a conversation. My website, wallyescobar.com. There's some information about what I do on the 9 to 5 and what I do outside of work. Feel free to hit me up, and just thank you for the conversation.
Man, you know that podcast?
What podcast?
Man, you know that podcast.
Which podcast?
Man, you know that.